Welcome to Watan al-Karama News Channel. It is 9 p.m. our time for top stories, and we start with latest developments in Libya. Air Force of Armed Forces launched airstrikes on terrorist positions Camp 319 Batni and Hijaz Street of Benghazi. Air Force jets also launched extensive raids on strongholds of terrorist Daesh group in the two mentioned districts near Randa confectioners in Al-Laythi district. The source noted that the armed forces and the units supporting them launched violence and fierce battles on some pockets of terrorist groups in Batni and Al-Hijaz Street districts. Members of the military engineering succeeded in dismantling bombs equipped for remote explosions planted in Laythi area of Benghazi city. A spokesman for the military engineering task force, Siraj Atira, noted that the members of the military engineering managed to dismantle the two bombs, which were prepared to be processed for the remote bomb during coming operations carried out by members of the military engineering at the sites that were recently dominated by the army. The spokesman called on citizens to stay away from the areas that were controlled by armed groups so as not to expose their lives to danger. Media advisor for the Parliament Speaker Fathi Abdel Karim Al-Mariami said that second Deputy of Parliament Speaker Ahmida Houma and Foreign Minister Mohammed Al-Dairi held a meeting with the UN envoy to Libya, Martin Kobler. The meeting comes within the framework of cooperation with the Libyan interlocutors. The meeting touched upon a host of issues topped by dialogue between the Libyan parties, sponsored by the United Nations through its representatives in Libya. The visit comes to listen to the views of all Libyan parties about the dialogue and means of its resumptions. Second Deputy of Parliament Speaker Ahmida Houma expressed his hope that the new UN envoy to Libya, Martin Kobler, does not commit the same mistakes as his former predecessor Bernardino Leon. Ahmida Houma added that he assured to the UN envoy that the Arab Libyan armed forces, which are fighting all forms of terrorism, is a red line. The new UN envoy to Libya, Martin Kobler, arrived in the city of Tobruk and met Parliament members, the Foreign Minister and the Mayor of Tobruk municipality. And still in Libya, Minister for Maghreb and African Union Affairs, the Algerian Abdelkader Messahel, said that his country will hold the 7th session of the Libya's neighboring countries in the 1st of December. Messahel noted that the meeting will be attended by representatives of 5 countries, namely Tunisia, Egypt, Sudan, Chad and Niger, as well as representatives of the Libyan parties. He stressed that there is a consensus on the need to resolve the crisis by peaceful means and forming a national unity government to resolve the crisis within the framework of respecting the unity and sovereignty of Libya and fighting terrorism. Algerian military authorities once again closed the land border with Mali and Libya immediately after the hostage-taking process in the Radisson Blu Hotel in the Malian capital Bamako. The military authorities in charge of conducting the border returned to tighten the security measures by closing the border. Moreover, the military leadership has imposed tight security measures on the border in parallel with sending 50,000 soldiers to the border with Libya and the same number to Mali. A hearing session was held at United Nations headquarters in Geneva and organized by the UN Office of Humanitarian Affairs to review the humanitarian need in Libya. Libyan representatives in the United Nations office, Salwa Ad-Dikhili, has highlighted the Libyan sectors that need humanitarian assistance, focusing on the healthcare sector. The meeting was held with participation of international organization representatives concerned with humanitarian affairs, as well as delegations of countries represented in Geneva. And now about Egyptian voting. The second phase of the elections began today and will continue until tomorrow. The elections are meant to restore parliament after more than 3 years. The elections have been hailed by President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi as a milestone on the army's roadmap to democracy. Egyptians have participated in 2 presidential elections, 2 parliamentary elections and 3 constitutional referendums since the 2011. On to the Iraqi crisis, Iraq said its armed forces were advancing towards the city of Ramadi from the north as part of an attempt to encircle the city in preparation of an offensive against terrorist Daesh militants controlling Ramadi. Now that months-long efforts to cut off supply lines to the city are having an effect. A statement released by Iraqi Ministry of Defense said that forces of the Army's 10th Mechanized Infantry Division are continuing their advance towards the center of the city from the northern side, supported by Iraqi air forces and heavy artillery shelling. Retaking the city of 450,000 would provide a major boost to Iraqi security forces in the face of advances by terrorist Daesh group, which last year seized a third of Iraq, a major OPEC oil producer. On to Daesh crisis and the British reaction to it, British Prime Minister David Cameron will this week set out of the case for joining airstrikes against terrorist Daesh militants in Syria, as Finance Minister said today, in an effort to persuade Parliament law to embark on another war in the Middle East. Britain is already bombing terrorist Daesh group in Iraq, but Cameron has said he believes Britain would be doing more to fight the militants who claimed responsibility for this month's attack in Paris, in which 130 people died. France has in the day since stepped up its bombing campaign against the group's members in Syria, who are also being targeted from the air by a US-led coalition and Russia. Britain's Sunday newspapers carrying headlines including "Britain prepares for war" reported a vote could be held within the next 2 weeks, with bombing underway by Christmas. UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon urged Russia and the United States today to cooperate in rooting out terrorism and said he would unveil a comprehensive plan to fight extremism and violence early next year. Ban said he counted on their support to wipe out a common enemy, and the United Nations was gathering ideas from members towards a joint counter-terrorist strategy. Ban said all these terrorist and ideology extremists should be defeated in the name of humanity. In this regard, we need to be united. We need to show global solidarity to address this common enemy of Daesh or some other extremist and terrorist groups. United States President Barack Obama and Russian President Minister Dmitry Medvedev separately called on all countries to coordinate and thwart terrorist Daesh group after its recent devastating attack on a Russian plane and on multiple targets in Paris. Malaysia handed over Asian rotating chairman membership to Laos today, marking the end of a two-day regional meetings in Kuala Lumpur. Leaders from 18 countries, including the United States, China, India, Russia, and Japan, and Southeast Asia, who gathered for the summit in Malaysia, the host in 2015, issued strong calls for actions after a recent spate of attacks by terrorist Daesh group in Paris, Mali, and Lebanon. Malaysian Prime Minister Najib Razak opened the meeting yesterday by sending a message to world leaders to combat terrorism and extremism in the light of recent attacks, which he called barbaric actions. The Southeast Asian nations also established a formal community that attempts to create freer movement of trade and capital in an area of 629 million people, with a combined economic output of $2.6 trillion. My audience, that is the wrap-up of our top stories for today. For much more, you can check our website www.watanelkarama.tv. Thanks very much for being with us. My greeting, Rانيا البليدى.